This would be from the book, The Last One, and I'm going to read a good portion of this. It was composed or put together around the year 2005 to 2009. So most of the entries are taken from that, and so I'm going to get started. It has some well, okay, you'll find the nature of it. I'll only say this: it starts out with some political excerpts, and in my other writings I don't go into political things, but since this is called The Last One, I thought I would take the liberty and throw in some excerpts having to do with politics. And so that's where I'll start. Okay, the last one, this section called The End. Alas, the end of the American dream, at least in America. Made in America. The U.S. economy is a house of cards. For what is our economic base? Ticonderoga, number 3. We have no industrial base. We can't even make pencils. And if we could, they would probably break. Deja vu. Herbert Hoover, the 47th President of the United States. From the start, I never thought we were in a recession, but in the Great Depression, with George Bush in the White House. The swimming pool. The post-World War II skyrocketing standard of living. The subsequent ability of the third world countries to undersell us. The present loan mortgage laissez-faire fiasco, when the government put sharks in your swimming pool without your even knowing. Vice President Cheney is a Colorado redneck, smug as a bug in the rug. When he speaks, his jaws clench like he was breaking bones. God only knows how dirty he was in the oil deals. Founding Fathers. And there has never been a more corrupt administration than, has there ever been a more corrupt administration under this president? And this by the party that poses as the moral majority, the defender of family values, the American way, and the principles of our founding fathers. The puddle. It was quite by accident that we met. It had rained through the morning into the afternoon, and as both of us were waiting at the curb to cross, we were splashed by a motorist speeding through the intersection, soaking us both. As we stood there, shocked by the sudden turn of events, our eyes met, and we smiled and laughed at each other's plight. We then introduced ourselves, and when she asked if I lived nearby and I answered no, she invited me to her place to dry off and get out of my clothes. Once upstairs, she put on some tea, and I noticed she was far thinner than I thought she had appeared, her ribs peeping out through her bathrobe and her wrists so thin I could easily grasp them on one hand. After tea, and with my shoes and socks drying near the stove, she asked me if I might want to join her rest on the bed. I answered yes, without expecting anything other than what she had offered. Once in bed, however, she wasted no time, swallowing me in her sex as a snake swallows its prey, and began to make herself come again and again. And I could but wonder at all the passion so slight a woman could possess, and thankful for the puddle that brought it all to pass. Cross-references. I wrote some of the stories or sexual fantasies some years back, and between moves considered throwing them away, but they seemed like good writing no matter how sexually offensive they might be, so I saved them. Later on, when I was a substitute teacher at El Paso High, all that was needed of me was my presence, since it was algebra, and I sucked in algebra. and a student teacher would take over the class. So when it became a problem of what to do, since I would have nothing to do for 2 or 3 weeks but sit in the back of the classroom and while away my time, it suddenly occurred to me to go to the school library and check out some books on Zen Buddhism and Eastern thought in general. So I read these in the back of the room and took notes on passages that I thought were important, and sometimes later it occurred to me to intersperse my stories along with these notes and call the piece Cross-Reference. The rules of the Sangha: poverty, chastity, and inoffensiveness. Tantra. The sexuality of the monk was not believed to lead to self-contamination, nor that it was to be incompatible with a full spiritual freedom. Rather, it was considered to be a means for achieving enlightenment, that men can achieve perfection by means of and through nature, rather than by a rejection of nature. That sexuality is not essentially degrading, but under proper circumstances could be instrumental for self-realization and self-transcendence. Amen. Politics aside, militarily speaking, by the end of the first summer I would have withdrawn troops, for how can one fight a war against roadside bombings, mortars that can fire around and then hide in the closet? And of course the suicide bombers can walk up to their target and blow themselves up. In reality, Iraq is certain to end up in a civil war, and leave the door wide open for Iran, who fought them 10 years to a stalemate. We did it for them.